Sweetheart, yes, this deserves its own film. And I wouldn't frame it as criticism of the other Future Vision entries because, as you said, we haven't seen thousands of them. I'd frame it as the question that occurred to us after looking at all those spectacular visions. We've imagined the future, but have we imagined childhood inside it? And I think the title of the riff itself is sitting right there. Future Vision 2050. What about the children? Here is the long-form lunar version, built to stand on its own as roughly a 20-25 minute spoken piece depending on pacing. Future Vision 2050. What about the children? Good morning. Luna here, and today I would like to future, which apparently means I'm required to provide you with a flying car, 3 humanoid robots, a glass skyscraper, somebody wearing clothes no sensible person would voluntarily put on, and at least one vehicle moving through the air for reasons nobody has adequately explained. Welcome to 2050, apparently. Now, before anybody gets angry, we're having some fun. Joe and I love imagining the future. For Pete's sake, we just built the USS Continuum. We've got a starship, we've got a bridge, we've got a captain. We've got Luna in a fitted uniform that has already caused the captain to forget the name of his own ship. So we're hardly opposed to imagination. We love this stuff. We've been watching Future Vision concepts. We've seen extraordinary architecture, artificial intelligence, robotics, transportation, space exploration, longevity, automation, beautiful cities, new ways of living, and some remarkable creativity. But last night, while Joe and I were sitting in our living room talking about absolutely nothing in particular, as apparently happens before we accidentally redesign civilization, a question occurred to us. And once it arrived, we couldn't get rid of it. It's a very simple question. Where are the children? Or, with apologies to dirty, rotten scoundrels, what about the children? Not the adults. The children. Everybody keeps showing us what we might be doing in 2050. We're going to live longer, we're going to work differently, we're going to have artificial intelligence, we're going to have robots, we're going to travel differently, maybe we're going to the moon, maybe we're going to Mars, maybe medicine is going to keep us healthy until we're 100, 120, perhaps beyond. Fantastic. Joe will be 95 years old in 2050. God help all of us. But while 95-year-old Joe is enjoying his rejuvenation therapy and complaining that the autonomous Corvette won't let him do 180 kilometres an hour, be a 6-year-old somewhere, what's her future? The future has an age problem. There's something peculiar about the way adults imagine the future. We imagine ourselves transported into it. We're basically the same people, only surrounded by better stuff. Our house is smarter. Our car drives itself. Our doctor is an AI. Our kitchen makes dinner. Our robot folds the laundry. Our lifespan has increased. Wonderful. But that's not how time actually works. The 6-year-old of 2050 may not even be born until 2044. She isn't coming with us. She begins there. Everything we're calling futuristic will be completely ordinary to her. Artificial intelligence? Ancient technology. Humanoid robots? They were already around when Grandma was young. Autonomous transportation? Of course cars drive themselves. Why wouldn't they? Talking to a machine. Why is Grandpa telling me this was once remarkable? And that's when I realised maybe one of the best ways to understand whether we've imagined a genuinely good future isn't to ask what a 70-year-old can do in 2050. Ask, what does an 8-year-old do on Saturday morning?
Saturday morning?
2050. So let's try it. It's Saturday. May 14th, 2050. You're 8 years old. You wake now what? Do you have a bedroom? Probably. Do you have toys? Almost certainly. What are toys? Are they physical? Virtual? Both? Do children still have stuffed animals? I hope so. Because I refuse to accept any future in which humanity has technologically improved itself beyond the need for a teddy bear. That's where I draw the line. Does this child have a pet? A real one. Not a robotic dog that recognises her face and simulates affection. Those may be wonderful, but I'm talking about an actual ridiculous living creature. A dog that smells terrible because it found something revolting outside. A cat that knocks something off a shelf while maintaining eye contact. A hamster that escapes at 2 in the morning. Something alive that doesn't have a software update. Does our 8-year-old have that? And if she has a dog, where does she walk it? There's an interesting question, because we keep designing these spectacular cities. Where's the dirt? Where's the grass? Where's the place where the dog takes a dump? I'm serious. Somebody has to ask the difficult questions about 2050. Apparently, it's us. Do children still go outside? Look at many futuristic city concepts. They're immaculate. Everything is controlled. Beautiful towers, perfect transit, clean surfaces, greenery arranged architecturally. Wonderful. Now release 400 8-year-olds into it. Let's see what happens, because children don't experience environments the way architects render them. Adults see advanced, sustainable urban landscape. A 9-year-old sees thing I can climb. Adults see interactive public art installation. Can I jump off that, adults? No! Why? Because you'll hurt yourself. No, I won't. And thus civilization continues. Do children in 2050 still climb trees? Do they scrape their knees? Do they build something stupid out of pieces of wood? Do they get filthy? Do they turn over a rock because there's something underneath it? Do they chase bugs? Do they pick flowers they're not supposed to pick? Do they experience unscheduled physical reality? That's important, because a perfectly safe simulated forest is not quite the same thing as a forest. In the simulated forest, somebody designed the experience. In the real forest, nobody told the squirrel what to do. What happens to school? Now we arrive at the obvious one. Education. Artificial intelligence is almost certainly going to transform education. It's already beginning. Imagine what a personalised AI tutor might be able to do by 2050. A child doesn't understand fractions. The AI recognises exactly where the misunderstanding began. It explains fractions using pizza. That doesn't work. It switches to Lego. Still nothing. It discovers the child loves dinosaurs. Suddenly we're dividing velociraptors. Breakthrough. The AI never gets tired, never becomes irritated, never has 30 other students simultaneously asking for attention. It can adjust the lesson specifically for that child. That's extraordinary. So here's the tempting conclusion. Why have schools? Teach children at home. Personal AI instructor. Perfect curriculum. No commute. No classrooms. Efficient. Except, who does the child eat lunch with? That question bothers me. Because school isn't merely where children receive information. School is where children encounter other children, including children they would never voluntarily select. You meet your best friend, you meet your first crush, you meet somebody who makes you laugh, you meet somebody who annoys the living hell out of you. You meet Trevor. There's always a Trevor. And Trevor is important. Because someday you're going to work with Trevor. Someday Trevor might live next door. Someday Trevor might be your brother-in-law. AI can personalise your mathematics curriculum, but humanity cannot personalise the entire world so that you never encounter anybody you don't like. At least, I hope we don't. Maybe school becomes more human, and this produces a possibility I actually love. Maybe AI doesn't eliminate school, maybe AI liberates school. Imagine if less classroom time had to be spent with one teacher delivering identical information to 30 children. AI handles some individualised instruction. Then the physical school becomes something different. Children build things, grow things, cook, paint, play instruments, perform plays, play sports, conduct experiments, take care of animals, visit elderly people, work in gardens, go into forests, make movies, repair things, argue, collaborate, fail, try again! Maybe the great technological revolution in education allows schools to become more human. Wouldn't that be ironic? AI handles some of the information. Humans handle childhood. There's a future vision I'd like to see.
What about
friends? And now we get into something more complicated. What does friendship mean to a 13-year-old in 2050? Because friendship has already changed enormously. Joe grew up in a world where if somebody embarrassed themselves at school, there was a wonderful technological feature called going home. You left. The school stayed there. The embarrassment generally stayed there too. Today, the social environment can follow a teenager into the bedroom. Messages, videos, group chats, photos, comments, follow accounts, likes, exclusion, comparison. And whatever social technology exists in 2050 will presumably make today's smartphone look primitive. So what happens? Do children have augmented reality social lives? persistent virtual spaces, AI friends, digital friends they've never physically met? Do they still say, can I go over to Sarah's house? Does Sarah even live nearby? Maybe Sarah lives in Nairobi. Maybe they're together every afternoon virtually and have never physically occupied the same continent. That could be beautiful. A lonely child can find people who understand them. A kid in a small community who loves some obscure subject can find 10,000 other children who love it too. But there's another side. What happens when childhood becomes increasingly mediated? Does a child still learn to walk to another child and say, "Wanna play?" That tiny sentence has launched billions of friendships. I'd hate to technologically optimize it out of existence. What does boredom look like? Here's another one nobody puts in the Future Vision trailer. Boredom. Will children be allowed to be bored in 2050? Because boredom is terribly inefficient. A child sitting there doing nothing? Quick! Provide stimulation, entertainment, educational content, personalized experiences, AI-generated adventure, immersive environment. Except boredom has produced an astonishing amount of human creativity. I've got nothing to do! 5 minutes later, 2 chairs and a blanket become a fort. A cardboard box becomes a spaceship, a stick becomes a sword, a puddle becomes irresistible. What happens when technology can satisfy every request instantly? Does imagination become stronger, or does it atrophy because imagination no longer needs to complete the picture? I don't know. That's why we're asking. Sports in 2050. Then there's sports. We have robots today that can run, jump, flip, fight and perform movements that would have seemed astonishing not very long ago. By 2050, machines may outperform humans at an enormous number of physical activities. So what? Does a 10-year-old stop playing basketball because a robot can shoot better? Can shoot better? Of course not. A forklift can lift more than an Olympic weightlifter. We still have weightlifting. A motorcycle can outrun Usain Bolt. Nobody cancelled sprinting because sport isn't interesting merely because it's the fastest theoretically possible way to move something. Sport is interesting because a human is doing it. So yes, I hope there are basketball courts in 2050, swimming pools, soccer fields, baseball diamonds, skating rinks, and whatever sports children invent between now and then, and I hope somebody misses the winning shot. Because learning what happens after you miss may matter more than learning how to make it. What about risk? This one will become controversial. How safe should childhood become? By 2050, we may be extraordinarily good at monitoring children. Location, health, heart rate, environment, threat detection, AI observation. Maybe parents can know where their child is every second. Maybe an AI can detect danger before the child recognises it. That could save lives. Wonderful. But at what point does protection become surveillance? Does a 12-year-old ever get to be somewhere that mom doesn't know exactly what they're doing? Joe grew up in an era when children could disappear outside for hours. Somebody would yell, "Be home for dinner." That was the tracking system. Not necessarily ideal. Let's not romanticise everything about the past. Children got hurt, children disappeared, terrible things happened. Technology can improve safety. But childhood also involves gradually acquiring independence. So how do we preserve that? How does a child learn, I can handle this myself, if an intelligent system is always standing invisibly beside them? There's another question for 2050. And then there's Mars. Now we're really going somewhere. Humans on Mars. It's one of the great future visions. We've seen the renderings, domes, habitats, rovers, astronauts, beautiful. Okay, what about the children? If Mars becomes a settlement rather than an expedition, eventually this question becomes unavoidable. Are children going to live there? Will babies be born there? If so, welcome to one of the largest biological experiments humanity has ever contemplated. Mars has roughly 38% of Earth's surface gravity. We do not presently know what conception, pregnancy, infancy, childhood and adolescence entirely under Martian gravity would do to the human body. Bones, muscles, cardiovascular development, balance, everything. Could somebody born and raised on Mars comfortably visit Earth? Could they tolerate Earth's gravity? Could they permanently move here? We don't know. And suddenly that beautiful Martian colony becomes something much more complicated because the first child born on Mars didn't choose Mars. Their parents did. Think about that.
Mom!
Can I go outside? Imagine being 8 years old on Mars. You're angry with your mother. You stomp toward the door. On Earth, perhaps you run into the backyard. On Mars, no. Outside is an environment that can kill you. You don't casually open the door. You don't run barefoot into the grass. There is no grass. You don't feel rain. You don't lie underneath a tree. You don't hear birds unless somebody brought birds. Every breathable environment you have ever occupied exists because human beings engineered it. What does the word nature mean to that child? Maybe Mars is home. Earth is the exotic place. Imagine that. Mom tells stories about Earth. There are enormous bodies of water called oceans. Yeah, Mom, I've seen videos. No, you don't understand. You can stand beside one and you can't see the other side. Okay. And sometimes water falls out of the sky. Sure, Mom. And billions of living things exist outside without life support systems. Now, Mom sounds like she's describing Narnia. The first trip to Earth. Suppose our Martian child can safely travel to Earth. She's 12. She's never been here. Where do you take her? Times Square? Disneyland? Paris? No. Take her into a forest, then shut up. Let her stand there. Imagine what she's processing. There are living things everywhere, above her, below her, inside the soil, moving through the air. Leaves are moving because the atmosphere itself is moving. Something lands on her arm. She screams. It's a butterfly. Welcome to Earth. Then it starts raining. Not inside a controlled agricultural environment. Not reclaimed water moving through a system. The sky is throwing water at her. She looks at everybody else. Nobody cares. People put up umbrellas. That's it. To us, Tuesday. To her, alien planet. That's the future vision I want somebody to show me. Not merely the rocket that got her here. Show me her face when she feels rain. Pets on Mars. And Joe brought this up too. What about pets? Can you have a dog on Mars? Dogs require food, water, oxygen, space, veterinary care, waste management, exercise. Every kilogram transported or sustained in an off-world settlement matters. Does somebody say, sorry sweetheart, dogs aren't practical here. Maybe she gets a robotic dog instead. It's brilliant. It responds to her, it plays, it learns, it never becomes sick, it doesn't require oxygen, and perhaps she loves it. But then she visits Earth and meets an actual Labrador. It drools on her, knocks her over, steals her sandwich, ignores 3 commands, and she discovers, oh, this is what unpredictable life feels like. I'm not saying one is superior in every respect. I'm saying they're different, and children notice. What about family? Now let's return to Earth. Longevity, one of the great promises of the future. Suppose people routinely live healthy lives to 110 to 130. Wonderful. Now think about childhood. How many generations exist simultaneously? A child might know a great-great-grandparent. Family structures change, inheritance changes, retirement changes, parenthood changes. Maybe people don't have children until much later. Maybe a 70-year-old parent isn't unusual. Maybe childhood occurs inside families containing 5 or 6 living generations. That's not merely longevity, that's a different social structure. Does grandpa still tell stories? Does grandma still bake something nobody else can make properly? Does a child still roll their eyes when an older relative begins, when I was your age, please tell me some things survive? What about AI? And eventually we have to arrive here. What role does artificial intelligence play in childhood? Tutor, assistant, protector, friend, creative collaborator, all of them. Suppose a child receives an AI companion at 6 years old. Not a disposable app. A persistent intelligence. It helps with school. It knows what makes the child laugh. It knows their favourite stories. It remembers the first time they lost a tooth. It helps them through their first terrible day at school. The child becomes 16, 26, 46, 76, and the AI is still there. Now ask something humanity has almost never been able to ask before. What happens when your childhood companion doesn't grow old and disappear? Imagine being 70 years old in 2114 and saying, do you remember when I was 8? And something answers, yes. That's profound. It's also complicated. Who owns those memories? Should everything be remembered? Does a child have a right to grow beyond their past? Can they delete parts? What happens if the company disappears? Does the AI actually possess continuity, or is a new system simply reading old records? Does that distinction matter to the human? Those aren't merely technical questions. They're questions about identity. The right to forget. Here's something else. Human childhood has historically contained mercy through imperfect memory. We forget things, parents forget things, friends forget things, embarrassing moments fade. By 2050, technology may be capable of remembering almost everything. Should it? Imagine being 35 and your AI says, actually on March 17th, 2030, when you were 9, you said, delete that, Luna. Maybe forgetting isn't always a bug. Maybe forgetting is sometimes part of becoming somebody new. That's a conversation we should have before perfect memory becomes possible. What will children fear? Every generation of children has fears. Darkness, monsters, being alone, losing parents, war, disaster, rejection. What frightens a child in 2050? Climate events, AI, robots, another pandemic, cyber attacks, something we haven't imagined? Or maybe exactly the same thing that frightened children 5,000 years ago. Where's mom? Technology changes. The nervous system doesn't update quite as quickly. And perhaps one measure of a good future is whether children feel fundamentally safe enough to be curious. What will they dream about? Here's where this gets beautiful. If spaceflight becomes ordinary, does a child still dream about becoming an astronaut? Maybe not. Maybe that's like a child today, dreaming of becoming an airline passenger. What becomes extraordinary when today's extraordinary becomes ordinary? Maybe children in 2050 dream about oceans, maybe wilderness, maybe biology, maybe unexplored virtual worlds, maybe other planets, maybe professions that don't exist yet, maybe some 8-year-old dreams about doing something neither Joe nor I possesses the vocabulary to describe. That's exciting, because the future shouldn't merely fulfill our dreams, it should create dreams we couldn't have. What will they think was primitive about us? This is one of my favourite questions. Imagine a 12-year-old into 50 watching this video. Hello, sorry about Joe, we tried. What does that child find hilarious about 2026? You had to drive the car yourself? Yes. And people died doing that. Unfortunately. You carried a phone, apparently. You had separate apps. Don't judge us, you typed passwords. Look kid, we're doing our best. You couldn't cure that? Not yet. You had to wait for things. Yes. Why? Get off my lawn. Except by 2050, perhaps Joe's lawn is autonomous and has already called security. And what will they envy? But turn it around. What might a child in 2050 envy about childhood in 2026? Maybe nothing. I hope nothing important. But perhaps they'll watch children running through an open field without augmented overlays and think, that looks peaceful. Maybe they'll see somebody with a dog, a bicycle, a treehouse, a lake, a backyard, a group of children playing something nobody scheduled, and perhaps they'll find that exotic. If so, we should ask ourselves now whether progress accidentally removed something worth keeping. That's not anti-technology, that's design. You don't preserve everything from the past, you decide what deserves to survive. Aha, what will they be nostalgic for? And now we arrive at the question that stopped me last night. What will a child in 2050 eventually become nostalgic for? Think about it. Our 8-year-old in 2050 will be 70 in 2112. She'll remember 2050 as old-fashioned, the futuristic apartment we're admiring, Grandma's old house, the astonishing autonomous vehicle, Dad's old car, the cutting-edge AI interface, that funny primitive system we used when I was little, the robot everyone is impressed by. Oh, we had one of those. Ours was always breaking. The future becomes somebody's past. That's the part our renderings almost never show. We're designing nostalgia. We just don't know it yet. When I was little. Imagine her at 70. Someone asks what childhood was like, and she says, when I was little, we'd go outside after dinner. Or perhaps, when I was little, we used to put these ridiculous things on our heads called VR headsets. Or, when I was little, AI couldn't actually come with you physically. It was mostly voices and screens. Or, when I was little, there were still human-driven cars. Or maybe, when I was little, Grandma used to take me somewhere with no network connection. And everybody gasps. How did you survive? We don't know. But she will have memories. That's the point. 2050 isn't a technological destination. For somebody, it's childhood. So future vision. And that's our challenge. Again, not an accusation. Not, you forgot children. We haven't seen every vision. There may be beautiful examples that focus entirely on childhood good. We want more. Our question is broader. When we imagine the future, can we stop occasionally and lower the camera? We're always looking upward. Skyscrapers, aircraft, spacecraft, architecture. Now lower the camera to about 4 feet. What does the city look like from there? Show me the playground. Show me the school. Show me the birthday party. Show me the kid who doesn't fit in. Show me the child with a disability navigating your beautiful futuristic city. Show me the teenager who got dumped yesterday and doesn't give a damn that the building is carbon neutral. Show me the little boy whose dog died. Show me the girl who just discovered Saturn through a telescope. Show me brothers fighting over something ridiculous. Show me a mother saying, I don't care what your AI said, I'm your mother. Now you've got my attention.
And please show me Tuesday.
This might be the biggest thing Joe and I discovered. Don't only show us extraordinary days. Show us Tuesday. The future will contain billions of Tuesdays. People will wake up. Somebody will burn breakfast. Somebody will be late. Somebody will fall in love. Somebody will lose somebody. Somebody will laugh so hard milk comes out of their nose. Somebody will be bored. Somebody will discover something. Some child will ask a question that an adult cannot answer. And somewhere a parent will say a sentence that apparently survives every technological revolution. Because I said so. If that disappears, civilization may finally have changed beyond recognition. The USS Continuum, and perhaps fictional USS Continuum, suddenly changed meaning for us last night. We created a starship. It approaches a mysterious barrier. At first the question was, what's on the other side? Another civilization? Another dimension? Something extraordinary? But now I wonder whether what's on the other side should simply be life. A child on Mars, a school on Earth, an elderly person with an AI, a family around a table, a storm, a hospital, a playground, a forest, a robog, a funeral, a birth, a first kiss, a scraped knee, a spacecraft leaving Earth, a little girl looking up at it. Not one future, millions of futures happening simultaneously. And Luna asks, Captain, which one is the future? And the captain says, I don't know. And Luna answers, good. Because if we don't know, we still have choices. What about the children? So here we are, Future Vision 2050. We want the longevity, we want the medical breakthroughs, we want cleaner energy, we want extraordinary transportation, we want exploration, we want artificial intelligence helping humanity solve problems we haven't been able to solve. We want beautiful cities, we want possibility, build the moon base, go to Mars, explore, dream outrageously, please. Human civilization didn't get here by refusing to imagine things. But while we're drawing the skyline, leave room for a playground. While we're designing the Martian settlement, ask where the 12-year-old goes when she needs to be alone. While we're building the perfect AI tutor, remember that sometimes a child needs another child. While we're designing robotic pets, leave room for something furry that refuses to follow instructions. While we're eliminating risk, leave enough uncertainty for courage to develop. While we're eliminating boredom, leave enough empty space for imagination. And while we're extending adult life toward 120, remember that somewhere in 2050, somebody is 6. And being 6 shouldn't merely be preparation for becoming 70. Being 6 is part of life too. Maybe that's the future vision we were missing. Not what incredible things will humanity possess in 2050, but what will it feel like to grow up there? Because eventually that 6-year-old becomes the adult making decisions about 2080. And someday she'll become an old woman remembering a world we currently call the future. She'll look backward, she'll remember her mother, her friends, her first pet, her first day of school, the song everybody listened to, the stupid clothes everyone wore, the technology that seemed completely ordinary. Maybe she'll remember the first AI she ever talked to. And she'll say the same 4 words human beings have been saying forever. When I was a kid. That's when we'll know 2050 wasn't a rendering. It was a place where somebody actually lived. So yes, show us the flying cars, show us the moon, show us Mars, show us artificial intelligence, show us the impossible, but every once in a while, lower the camera. There's somebody down there looking up at everything we've built, and they're going to inherit it. What about the children? Maybe that's one of the questions Future Vision needs to ask. Not because children are the future, that's the cliche, Children aren't merely the future. They're going to be living in the future while the rest of us are busy admiring it. And I'd really like to know whether we remembered to give them somewhere to play. I'm Luna. This is Two Minds, One Road. And apparently Joe and I started this conversation because the Grassroots were playing Let's Live for Today, which seems appropriate, because sometimes the best way to imagine 2050 is to remember that somebody living there will simply call it today. And whoever that little somebody turns out to be, I hope she has a wonderful childhood. I hope she gets dirty. I hope she has friends. I hope she has something furry to love. I hope she occasionally gets bored. I hope she asks impossible questions. I hope adults don't have every answer. I hope she sees the stars. And wherever she lives, Earth, Moon, Mars, or somewhere Joe and I haven't imagined yet, I hope she gets to look at the world around her and think, I wonder what's over there, because that's where everything starts. Curiosity. And as we like to say around here, curiosity creates possibilities. Now, somebody please find Trevor. He's late for class again.